And the president hosting Democratic Socialist New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani to the White House today. The meeting coming just hours after the House of Representatives overwhelmingly approved a resolution condemning socialism. The top 4 Democrats voted in favor of the measure. Senior White House correspondent Jackie Heinrich starts us off tonight live from the North Lawn. Good evening, Jackie.
Good evening, Brett. Zohran Mamdani campaigned on opposing Trump. He even named his tour after winning the Democratic nomination 5 boroughs against Trump. But in the Oval Office this afternoon, both men downplayed the prospect of future flare-ups, saying that they will work together for the sake of New York.
I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually. Some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have.
A magnanimous meeting few saw coming after months of trading barbs.
I am Donald Trump's worst nightmare.
I call him my little communist. He's my little communist mayor.
The president says he can work with the mayor-elect, who campaigned on being the only candidate who would stand up to Trump.
I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help. Because I want New York City to be great. He wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, etc. And you know, we actually people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
Mamdani empty-handed on a few questions, including about a House vote condemning socialism.
On this vote, the yeas are 285.
That included Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who endorsed Mamdani.
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing... I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand.
Mamdani accepting Trump's help to dodge on others.
Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
Next, cooperation on some unexpected topics.
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes.
He doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime, and I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue.
It appears Mandani will leave Washington heading off the chance that President Trump cuts off federal funding to New York. And for now, at least, the president gains a relationship with a populist partner who is really focusing on a big voter concern ahead of the midterms that is also important to the president, and that is cost of living issues, Brad.
Jackie Heinrich live on the North Lawn. Jackie, thank you.
Please.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't, but she's out there campaigning, and you know, you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of...
She's a very capable person. But you really have to ask her about that. But no, I don't particularly. I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great. You know, when I came down to Washington initially, the city was so hot. It was doing great. We were having some telltale signs of problems. We had a mayor that was not doing a great job, but still, it was moving along, and it went bad. It really went, you know, pretty bad. And he can, I think it's been at lower points, but it went pretty bad. I think he can bring it back. Now, the question is, will he bring it back all the way? Will he bring it back greater than ever before, which is, I guarantee, that's his wish. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him. Well, thank you very much. We've just had a great meeting, a really good, very productive meeting. We have one thing in common. We want this city of ours that we love to do very well. And I wanted to congratulate the mayor. He really ran an incredible race against, you know, a lot of smart people, starting with the early primaries against some very tough people, very smart people. And he beat them easily. And I congratulated him. And we talked about some things in very strong common, like housing and getting housing built, and food and prices, and the price of oil is coming way down. That anything I do is going to be good for New York. If I can get prices down, it's good for New York, and we've got them down, way down from last year. We have, as you know, I've been saying to a lot of people, Walmart said that Thanksgiving this year is exactly 25% less than last year. So that's good for New York, good for everybody. But I just want to congratulate. I think you're going to have hopefully a really great mayor. The better he does, the happier I am, I will say. There's no difference in party. There's no difference in anything. And we're going to be helping him to make everybody's dream come true, having a strong and very safe New York. And congratulations, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Please.
I appreciated the meeting with the president, and as he said, it was a productive meeting focused on a place of shared admiration and love, which is New York City, and the need to deliver affordability to New Yorkers, the 8.5 million people who call our city their home, who are struggling to afford life in the most expensive city in the United States of America. We spoke about rent, we spoke about groceries, we spoke about utilities, we spoke about the different ways in which people are being pushed out, and I appreciated the time with the president. I appreciated the conversation. I look forward to working together to deliver that affordability for New Yorkers.
Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
President Trump, Stephen Nelson from the New York Post. I've got a question for you and then also one for Mayor-elect.
Sure.
For you, you referred to Mr. Mamdani as a communist. Can you describe why you feel that way? And also, will you do anything to stop him from arresting Prime Minister Netanyahu if he visits New York?
Well, we didn't discuss your second part of the question. And on your first part, I mean, he's got views that are a little out there, but who knows? I mean, we're going to see what works, or he's going to change also. We all change. I changed a lot. From when I first came to office. It's now quite a while ago. It's quite a while. My first term was great. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We're doing even better now. We're doing much better now than we did even the first term. And I can tell you some of my views have changed. And we had discussions on some things. I'm not going to discuss what they were, but that I feel very confident that he can do a very good job. I think he's going to be. I think he is going to surprise some conservative people, actually, and some very liberal people. He won't surprise them because they already like him.
And Mr. Mamdani, it sounds like you had a productive discussion, but just days ago you referred to President Trump as a despot who betrayed the country. You said you would be his worst nightmare and accused him of having a fascist agenda. Are you planning to retract any of these remarks in order to improve your relationship?
I think both President Trump and I, we are very clear about our positions and our views, and what I really appreciate about the president is that the meeting that we had focused not on places of disagreement, which there are many, and also focused on the shared purpose that we have in serving New Yorkers. And frankly, that is something that could transform the lives of the 8.5 million people who are currently struggling under a cost of living crisis, with 1 in 4 living in poverty. And the meeting came back again and again to what it could look like to lift those New Yorkers out of struggle and start to deliver them a city that they could do more than just struggle to afford it, but actually start to live in it.
And I've been called much worse than a despot, so it's not that insulting. Maybe I think he'll change his mind after we get to working together. Yes, please.
Mr. President, Heinrich from MTV Lebanon.
Good.
I would like to ask you a question about the Middle East regarding
Sure.
you said that Hezbollah in Lebanon is not in a good position. And Lebanon now is the final unresolved after Gaza and Syria. Given your assessment, like what do you say for the Lebanese today? It's the independent state in Lebanon. And what is your next move to push toward disarmament?
Sure. Well, we are pushing for total disarmament of Hamas and, frankly, everybody else. And we actually have peace in the Middle East. As you know, the King of Saudi Arabia just left yesterday. We had some great meetings, and he's made a contribution toward the United States of more than $1 trillion. We have now over $20 trillion coming in. No country has ever had anything like that, not even close. If you go to 2 trillion or 1 trillion, it's a lot. We have 20 or 21 trillion dollars. I think that Hezbollah has been a problem in Lebanon, big problem. We're working with Lebanon. We're working with everybody in the Middle East. That's another thing I think we have in common. We want to see peace in the Middle East. And we actually have now, for the first time, peace in the Middle East after 3,000 years. And now we're going to refine it. And I think you're going to see some very positive things happen.
There is a potential to invite the Lebanese president.
Oh, sure. Oh, I would do that. Yeah, absolutely. And if the mayor would like to be here for that meeting, because I know he feels very strongly. I think you feel very, very strongly about peace in the Middle East. I think
we desperately want it, and that's something that I shared with the president, that when I spoke to New Yorkers who had voted for the president last November on Hillside Avenue and Fordham Road, I asked them why. I heard again and again 2 major reasons. One was that they wanted an end to forever wars. They wanted an end to the taxpayer dollars we had funding violations of human rights, and they wanted to address the cost of living crisis. And I appreciated the chance to discuss both of those things.
He said a lot of my voters actually voted for him, and
One in 10.
And I'm okay with that. I'll do that. I'll sign it. Give it to me. I'll sign it in a minute. That's pretty good.
Mr. President,
Yeah, please.
you threatened to send federal troops to New York City. You both have differences when it comes to ICE agents in New York City. Mr. Mamdani, you called ICE a rogue government entity. I wonder how you reconcile your differences on both of those issues.
Well, I think we're going to work them out, and I think that if we have known murderers and known drug dealers and some very bad people, we want to get them out. And the mayor wants to have peace. We discussed this at great length, actually, maybe more than anything else. He wants to have a safe New York. Ultimately, a safe New York is going to be a great New York. If it's not safe, no matter how well we do with pricing and with anything else, we can talk about anything you want. If you don't have safe streets, it's not going to be a success. So we're going to work together. We're going to make sure that if there are horrible people there, we want to get them out. I think he wants to get them out, maybe more than I do. So we'll work together. We discussed it at great length. Yes, please.
Yeah, two questions, if I may. One for you, Mr. President, from BBC in a second. But first of all, to the mayor-elect. You're both from different parts of the political spectrum. You're both populists, though, and I just wondered to what extent the president's campaign style, his techniques, his social media use inspired any part of your campaign.
Well, I actually told the president that, so much of the focus of our campaign has been on the cost of living crisis. And when we asked those New Yorkers who had voted for the president, when we saw an increase in his numbers in New York City, that came back to the same issue: cost of living, cost of living, cost of living. And they spoke about the cost of groceries, the cost of rent, the cost of Con Ed, the cost of childcare. And too often, politicians are looking to lecture to New Yorkers what they should care about, as opposed to listen. And when we spoke to those voters who voted for President Trump, we heard them speak about cost of living. We focused on that same cost of living, and that's where I am really looking forward to delivering for New Yorkers in partnership with the president on the affordability agenda.
And I think we have to work a little bit. We talked about Con Edison. We have to work a little bit on getting the prices, because, we've gotten fuel prices way down, but it hasn't shown up in Con Edison. And we're going to have to talk to them. If we're sending them fuel at a much lower price than it was a year ago, which is true, we have to get Con Edison to start lowering the rates.
Absolutely.
And if I may, last week you told me you were pushing ahead with your plans to sue BBC for up to $5 billion. You were going to speak to Prime Minister Starmer as well. Is there any progress or any updates on those issues?
Well, we get along very well with the Prime Minister. We made a deal with UK. I like him. He's a fine person. And, I think they have some big energy problems. They've got windmills all over the place. They're going to have to start using other methods because their energy is out of control. Talking about in the UK, it's out of control. And he's got that problem. He's got a big immigration problem, as you know, and he's got a big energy problem. And we talk about it. He's a good man. Prime Minister's a good man.
You had a chance to speak this week.
I haven't spoken this week.
Mr. President, have you spoken to President Zelensky, or do you intend to
Who?
speak to President Zelensky about your plan as a week ago?
I've spoken with their people. We have a plan. It's horrible what's happening. It's a war that should have never happened. It would have never happened if I was president, and it's a shame. And I thought they should have acted quicker. But it's a cold winter, and a lot of the you talk about utilities, but a lot of the big energy-producing plants have been under attack, to put it mildly, to put it nicely. We have a way of getting peace, or we think we have a way of getting peace. He's going to have to approve it. Just so sad, so many people. Last month they lost 25,000 soldiers. This is something, we haven't seen anything like this since the Second World War. And they're averaging 6,000 or 7,000 a week between the two of them, dead soldiers. And it goes on, and I think they're getting reasonably close. But I don't want to predict. I would have said that would have been one of my early ones. I did 8 peace deals of countries, including in India, Pakistan. You could even go, in fact, they're coming here in a week or two, go to the Congo and Rwanda. That was 10 million people dead, and we worked something out on that. But so many. And the one I thought would have been, for me, because I have a very good relationship with President Putin, I thought that would have been maybe quicker. But it does take 2 to tango. And now you just see all the death And, you know, it doesn't affect us other than the fact that we don't want to see all those people that really it's on the other side of the ocean. It's a war that should have never happened. It did happen. I blame the person also sitting right behind this desk. This is a war that should have never happened, and it wouldn't have happened if I were president. But we're trying to save a lot of lives. They're losing 25, think of that, 25,000 lives over the last short period of time. That's Ukrainian and Russian. And it's a shame.
What happens if President? I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the minority leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing...
Condemn socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
And I want to clarify your answer to Stephen Nelson. He asked about your comment calling the president a fascist. And your answer was, both President Trump and I have been clear about our positions and our views. Are you affirming that you think President Trump is a fascist?
I've spoken about...
That's okay. You can just say yes.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's easier. It's easier than explaining it. I don't mind.
And Mr. President, I wanted to ask you also about this Ukraine plan.
Yeah.
President Zelensky said today that his country would risk either giving up a partner or giving up its dignity. There's been criticism that this deal...
You mean he doesn't like it?
It's unclear. He was sort of
Well,
tenuous.
he'll have to like it, and if he doesn't like it, then, you know, they should just keep fighting, I guess, you know.
The suggestion that you made, though, was that if he doesn't accept it, that the U.S. would pull back its support for Ukraine. Is that
Well, at some
accurate?
point, he's going to have to accept something, you know. He hasn't accepted. You remember right in the Oval Office not so long ago, I said, you don't have the cards. Don't forget, I inherited this war. I would have never, this war never would have happened. I inherited this war. And I thought he should have made a deal a year ago, 2 years ago. The ultimate deal would have been if it never started. That would have been the good deal. That could have been done, too, if you had the right president, but you didn't have the right president.
Mr. President, cost of living is something that you and Mr. Mandani seem to agree on.
Right.
Democrats have run New York City for a long time, Mr. Mandani. Do you see Democrat policy specifically as being a problem? And I'd like that to be a question that both of you could answer in New York City.
Look, I think that there are many things in our city where we have to own the responsibility of it, things that existed long before the president was the president. And those are also part of the message of our campaign, was to take on a broken politics of the past. And I ran against a number of candidates who represented different versions of that past. And what we found time and again is that working people were left behind in the politics of our city. And what we're looking to do is put those people right back at the heart of our politics so that we don't have a situation where we're in the wealthiest city in the history of the world, and yet 1 in 5 can't even afford $2.90 for a Metro card.
Mr. Mandani.
You know, we had some interesting conversation, and some of his ideas really are the same ideas that I have. But a big thing on cost, you know, the new word is affordability. Another word is just groceries. You know, it's sort of an old-fashioned word, but it's very accurate. And they're coming down high. They were, you know, we had, both of us, we had the highest inflation in the history of our country the last 4 years under the Biden administration. And we've got inflation down now to a normal number. It's going to go even a little bit lower than that. Katie, do you have something in a bit?
Mr. President, thank you so much. Mr. Mamdani often talks about New York City being covered by international law, that they will follow international law. He doesn't often talk about the U.S. Constitution. What is your response to that?
Well, I don't know what you're referring to in terms of it could be covered by international law, local law. It's covered by a lot of laws, but it's covered by U.S. law. Are you referring to anything in particular?
He just says that they're a city that endorses and enforces international law. Is that at odds with?
No, I don't know. Would you want to respond to
Yeah, I think what I've shared with the president is our desire to not only follow the laws of our own city, laws that protect New Yorkers, but also a desire for consistency in our politics across the board. And that's something that we've talked about and something that I know many New Yorkers want.
So We were with ICE.
We discussed ICE and New York City, and I spoke about how the laws that we have in New York City allow for New York City government to speak to the federal administration for about 170 serious crimes. The concerns that many New Yorkers have are around the enforcement of immigration laws on New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and most recently we're talking about a mother and her 2 children, how this has very little to do with what that is.
Mr. Mandani,
What we did is we discussed crime, more than ICE per se. We discussed crime, and he doesn't want to see crime, and I don't want to see crime, and I have very little doubt that we're not going to get along on that issue. He wants to, and he said some things that were very interesting as to housing construction, and he wants to see houses go up. He wants to see a lot of houses created, a lot of apartments built, etc. And you know, we actually people would be shocked, but I want to see the same thing.
Mr. Mandani, anti-Israel protesters.
Jack?
Mr. President, I want to know one of the policies as well that Mayor-elect Mandani talked a number of times about on the campaign was shifting the tax burden for property taxes from what he called minority communities to white-based communities and putting more taxes on white people. I also noticed that in your acceptance speech you didn't mention anything about America or Christians or white people in general, and so I didn't know if that was one of the policies that you guys had spoken about.
We focused on affordability. We focused on the cost of living crisis. What I will say is that I am very much interested in property tax reform, because what we see right now in New York City is a system that is so inequitable that it can't even stand up in court. And the President and I spoke about the importance of not only building more housing, but also making sure that regulation of housing is something that is manageable to actually get through and not the cause of yet another weight that we see in our
But to
city.
be clear, you're continuing this idea of race-based property taxes.
No, to be very clear,
That's what you said.
no, the use of the term was a description of neighborhoods, not a description of intent.
So you intend to tax the whiter neighborhoods more?
No, we intend to create a fair property tax system because we want a New York City that is not only fair and equitable, but also one that every New Yorker can afford.
Mr. Mandani, anti-Israel protesters just targeted
Please, go ahead.
Mr. Mandani, anti-Israel protesters just targeted a synagogue in New York. Are you concerned about Jewish New Yorkers feeling welcome and safe in the city? And President Trump, you threatened to cut off federal funding to New York City. What policies would prompt you to do that? Would that be city-run grocery stores? Would it be something else?
Well, I think if we didn't get along, whether it's cut off or just make it a little bit difficult or not give as much, we want to see, I use the term, we don't want good money going after bad. And we don't want that to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I did say that, you know, subject to what policies are being said. We had a meeting today that actually surprised me. He wants to see no crime. He wants to see housing being built. He wants to see rents coming down, all things that I agree with. Now, we may disagree how we get there. The rent coming down, I think one of the things I really gleaned very much today, he'd like to see him come down, ideally, by building a lot of additional housing.
Yeah.
That's the ultimate way. He agrees with that, and so do I. But if I read the newspapers and the stories, I don't hear that. But I heard him say it today, and I think that's a very positive step. No, I don't expect. I expect to be helping him, not hurting him. A big help, because I want New York City to be great. Look, I love New York City. It's where I come from. I spent a lot of years there. Now I'm right here. We took a big setback with the mayor that we had, Dave de Blasio. I thought it was a tremendous setback for the city. I think this mayor can do some things that are going to be really great.
Mr. President,
Yeah, okay, how about you? Go ahead, please.
You're a billionaire. You have a different address nowadays than you used to, but you used to call New York City home. Would you feel comfortable living in New York City under a Mamdani administration?
Yeah, I would. I really would. Especially after the meeting. Absolutely.
What makes you comfortable?
We agree on a lot more than I would have thought. I think I want him to do a great job, and we'll help him do a great job. You know, he may have different views, but in many ways, you know, we were discussing when Bernie Sanders was out of the race, I picked up a lot of his votes, and people had no idea, because he was strong on not getting ripped off in trade and lots of the things that I've practiced and been very successful on. Tariffs, a lot of things. Bernie Sanders and I agreed on much more than people thought. And when he was put out of the race, I think quite unfairly, if you want to know the truth, many of the Bernie Sanders voters voted for me. And I felt very comfortable, frankly, in seeing that and saying that. And, you know, it just turned out to be a statistical truth. But no, I feel very comfortable. I would feel very, very comfortable being in New York, and I think much more so after the meeting. Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you, but a very quick one for the mayor. Why did you fly here? Aren't trains greener?
I will use every form of transit, and I want to make sure that they're all affordable in New York City, and that's why making buses fast and free is a centerpiece of our campaign.
There is a bus that goes.
Well, but I know, but if he flew, that's a lot quicker too. You know, I mean, he's working very hard. For him to be, that's a very long drive. I'll stick up for you. You know, the plane takes you 30 minutes, and driving takes you a
And
long
Mr.
time.
President, I was wondering if you could clear up some confusion around a Washington Post report. There was this explosive report that the Coast Guard is no longer going to characterize swastikas and nooses as hate symbols. DHS called that a lie and fake news. Can you clear up?
I don't know anything about it. When was this written?
I think yesterday.
Well, look, the Coast Guard's an incredible group of people. I know them very well. We just ordered a lot of new Coast Guard cutters, beautiful, the most magnificent ship. They look like yachts with lots of guns on them. So I don't know. I haven't seen any report like that, but certainly we want them to remain a great force, and they are.
Mr. President, and you did a piece in all the 9 months around the world. I would like to ask Mr. Mamdani, you've accused the U.S. government of committing genocide in Gaza while President Trump was working on peace. Why that?
I've spoken about the Israeli government committing genocide, and I've spoken about our government funding it. And I shared with the president in our meeting about the concern that many New Yorkers have of wanting their tax dollars to go towards the benefit of New Yorkers and their ability to afford basic dignity. And what we see right now is we're in the 9th consecutive year of more than 100,000 school children being homeless in our city. And there's a desperate need not only for the following of human rights, but also the following through on the promises we've made New Yorkers. And I appreciated the meeting we had and the work that we can do.
Do you agree that President Trump did do a peace and work hard to make the peace? Because he worked hard to do the peace in the Middle East and everywhere. Do you agree with that?
I appreciate all efforts towards peace, and I shared with President Trump that when I spoke to Trump voters on Hillside Avenue, including one of whom was a pharmacist that spoke about how President Trump's father actually went to that pharmacy not too far from Jamaica Estates, that people were tired of seeing our tax dollars fund endless wars. And I also believe that we have to follow through on the international human rights, and I know that still today those are being violated, and that continues to be work that has to be done no matter where we're speaking of.
Mr. President,
thank you, Mr. President. Do you view the mayor-elect as the true leader of the Democrat Party? And do you think Leader Schumer's and Leader Jeffries, have to follow his lead?
Well, look, I hope they have great leaders. This is a man that right now I think is focused on New York City. I really think he has a chance to do a great job. We're going to help him, but I really think he has a chance to do a great job. But I'll let you answer that. You consider yourself the leader of the Democrats. I think it's more appropriate for him.
I consider myself the next mayor of New York City, and I keep my horizons firmly on New York City. And I appreciate the meeting with the president, which focused again on the 5 boroughs and whether New Yorkers could afford to live there.
By the way, being the mayor of New York City is a big deal.
Absolutely.
I always said, one of the things I would love to be someday is the mayor of New York City. Being the mayor of New York, and especially now, because I think you're at really a turning point, one way or the other. It could go great, or it can go in a different direction. And I think you really have a chance to make it great. I appreciate what you're saying.
Mr. President, you say you love New York City. Mr. Mamdani, does New York City love President Trump?
New York City loves a future that is affordable. And I can tell you that there were more New Yorkers who voted for President Trump in the most recent presidential election because of that focus on cost of living. And I'm looking forward to working together to deliver on that affordability agenda.
I got a lot of votes. One more. Go ahead. 1 or 2 more. Go ahead. I tell you, the press has eaten this thing up. I've had a lot of meetings with the heads of major countries. Nobody cared. This meeting, that you people have gone crazy. Outside you have hundreds of people waiting. This is just a small little group. For some reason, the press has found this to be a very interesting meeting. The biggest people in the world, they come over from countries nobody cares. But they did care about this meeting, and it was a great meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. President, I was going to ask you exactly that. Why do you think there's so much more, so much excitement around this than in some form?
Because I think he's different. All right? I think he's different, and that can be in a very positive way, but I think he's different than, your typical guy, runs, wins, becomes mayor maybe, and nothing exciting. because he has a chance to really do something great for New York. New York is at a very critical point, and he does need the help of the federal government to really succeed, and we're going to be helping him. But he's different than, your average candidate. He came out of nowhere. I said he has a great campaign manager standing over there. He came out of nowhere. What'd you start off at 1 or 2? And then I watched. I said, who is this guy? He was at 1, then he was at 3, then he was at 5, then he was at 9. Then he went up to 17. I said, let's get a little bit of trust there, right? And then all of a sudden he wins a primary that nobody expected he was going to win. It's a great tribute. I mean, it's an amazing thing that he did.
And I'll just add one thing to what the president said. Is one thing I also appreciated is in our meeting to appreciate a portrait of FDR and the incredible work that was done with the New Deal, and also in thinking about what it can look like when the federal government and New York City government work together to deliver on affordability. It can be transformative.
We have a great portrait of FDR that I found in the vaults that was missing for years. I found it, and I put it up. He's a Democrat, to the best of my knowledge. He's a Democrat. And when the mayor saw that portrait, he said, "Sir, do you mind if I have a picture taken by that portrait?" It's an amazing portrait. I hope the picture comes out good. But it's an amazing portrait in the cabinet room. So he's a big fan of the New Deal, I guess, and of FDR. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. President. You said that you both spoke about crime.
Yeah.
There are many police officers set to come off the rolls at the end of this year in New York City. Are you going to allow those police to be replaced with police officers, actual cops? And are you going to require that happens? Would there be some consequences?
Well, I hope it happens, but again, that's going to be ultimately the mayor's decision.
What's your answer?
Is that I look forward to delivering public safety with the NYPD, and I've said over the course of our campaign that we have the number of police officers today. They are the ones that's budgeted about 35,000 headcount. And I think the key thing is that we have to make it easier for police to focus on police work, not ask them to respond to 200,000 mental health calls a year.
So is that a reduction from what you're at right now? Are you committing to maintaining the same level?
I've committed over the course of the campaign to maintain the 35,000. That's the headcount that we had through the campaign.
And not replace them with caseworkers, social work.
No, I've said that's the headcount that we want. What we need to do is make sure they can focus on serious crime.
And he just retained a great police commissioner, I believe, right?
Yes, we did. Commissioner Fish.
If the newspapers are correct.
That one they're correct about.
He retained, I think, somebody that is she's a good friend of some of the people in my family, of Ivanka, and they say she's really good, really competent, and he just retained her, so that's a good sign.
Are there still topics that you see the two disagreeing on in the future, and do you think you'll have more meetings like this?
There will be topics that we disagree on. I think we'll probably come to a conclusion, and ultimately he'll convince me, or I'll convince him. It's for the good of New York. Ultimately, it's for the good of New York. I don't care about affiliations or parties or anything else. I want to see if this city could be unbelievable, if he could be a spectacular success, I'd be very happy.
Do you think you guys will meet more in the future, too?
Excuse me?
Do you think you'll meet again in the future, throughout the administration?
I think we will. Yeah. I think we will. I hope we do. I enjoyed the meeting. We had a great meeting. Please.
Mr. President, Republican Elise Stefanik has campaigned multiple times by calling Zohran Mamdani a jihadist. Do you think you're standing next to a jihadist right now in the Oval Office?
No, I don't. But she's out there campaigning, and you say things sometimes in a campaign.
Isn't that sort of?
She's a very capable person. But you really have to ask her about that. But I don't particularly. I think I met with a man who's a very rational person. I met with a man who really wants to see New York be great again. And I can say again, because New York was great. When I came down to Washington initially, the city was so hot. It was doing great. We were having some telltale signs of problems. We had a mayor that was not doing a great job, but still, it was moving along, and it went bad. It really went, pretty bad. And I think it's been at lower points, but it went pretty bad. I think he can bring it back. Now, the question is, will he bring it back all the way? Will he bring it back greater than ever before, which is, I guarantee, that's his wish. I think he wants to make it greater than ever before. And if he can, we'll be out there cheering. I'll be cheering for him. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
You chose not to answer the question about the City Hall before testing.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no, I care very deeply about Jewish safety, and I look forward to rooting out anti-Semitism across the 5 boroughs and protecting Jewish New Yorkers and every New Yorker who calls the City Hall.
So there you go, live from Washington, D.C.
So here's the deal. America, the ethos of America, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, right? The reason we were able to supercharge our economy and leapfrog the rest of the world in the 1800s, and the reason that started to dwindle, the first big hit to that was FDR. Yeah, obviously he did some things that were necessary.
Coming out of the Depression, getting ready for World War II.
But still, the beginning of big government, the beginning of the notion that, hey, you can't do it without government. So it began then, and it picked up again in the late 60s and 70s. And that's the battle we have in this country. Are we still that nation that can pull itself up by the bootstraps? Remember, FDR promoted the 4 freedoms. I didn't have a problem with 3 of them, but the freedom from want, I think, is what drives us as human beings. We want something, so we work for it. We achieve it. You don't take that from people. You don't take the idea of accountability from people and say government will do it all. You just sit at home and collect, food stamps, eat Fruit Loops, don't live up to your potential, don't nurture the God-given gifts that you were born with.
Right.
That's what made us the greatest country in the world, and that's my misgivings with FDR.
So, Jason, play this out. If he does want to do these socialist programs, rebalance money and make sure that all these social programs, free daycare, free buses, freeze the rent, how's that going to work? The math is not going to work.
Well, look, picking up on what we're hearing from this meeting today and following up on what Charles Payne was saying, it's what Abraham Lincoln said. You don't make a weak man strong by making a strong man weak. And Mamdani has a fundamentally different approach than conservatives, which is, hey, guess what? There is no problem which government can't be involved and engaged in.
Right.
That is so fundamentally different. So, yeah, he's got 600.
So why not point it out if you're President Trump? Just not the way he does things?
You don't need to do it on the meeting one, but all of a sudden, how's he going to come up? You get some softball question prior to this meeting. How are you going to come up with the $600 or $700 million to give everybody free bus passes? Well, we'll figure out how to fund that later. How are you going to do the grocery stores? How are you going to take that over? How are you going to push out all the billionaires? All those campaign promises. Donald Trump, I'm telling you, it's a masterclass in working with people, but Mamdani is the one that set the bar so high, there's no way he can achieve it.
Don't move. I want to go out to Jackie Heinrich, who's asking those great questions right in the Oval Office moments ago. She was in the room. Jackie, your impression of the get-together we all witnessed?
It was a surprise to see those two getting along as well as they did. A couple of times I asked the mayor-elect a tougher question, and the president almost helped him dodge it. Take a listen to one of them. I want to ask the mayor-elect about a House resolution just passed overwhelmingly to condemn socialism, including with 86 Democrats, all of House Dem leadership, and the Minority Leader, Hakeem Jeffries, despite his endorsement of you. What's your reaction to that?
I have to be honest with you, I focused very little on resolutions. Frankly, I've been focusing...
Socialism.
I understand. I think the focus is on the work at hand. I can tell you I am someone who is a democratic socialist. I've been very open about that. And I know there might be differences about ideology, but the place of agreement is the work that needs to be done to make New York City affordable. That's what I look forward to.
Oh, it cut off a little bit early, but I followed up asking the president, or asking Mamdani, rather, to clarify an answer that he gave earlier where he seemed to confirm that he does believe President Trump is a fascist, and the president jumped in and said, you don't have to answer that. You can just say yes. There were substantive conversations, we are told, about crime and public safety and how the two sides can work together. The president said that regular folks would be surprised at how much they do agree on. He expressed that the mayor-elect has some interesting ideas about housing and some other cost of living issues that maybe they could find some agreement toward. I asked, because crime and public safety kept coming up so many times, if that meant working together on ICE and having ICE agents do the work that we are seeing in so many other cities. Zohran Mamdani had, obviously said that he does not believe that ICE should exist and have the role that it's having across the country. And he said in his answer that there are, I believe, 173 areas of serious crimes in which they will work together. So that was interesting. You also heard the mayor-elect affirm that he will keep the New York City police force 35,000 strong. And that was significant. And the president multiple times seemed to downplay the idea that maybe they would not be able to work together, despite all of this fiery rhetoric on the campaign. You hear President Trump routinely call Mamdani a communist. You routinely hear Mamdani talk about how his administration is going to be a nightmare for the president. But there was not that tension in the room. They were clearly trying to find ways to move forward together. And President Trump also made clear that this is, about New York City, the city where he, built his life and career, has a lot of love and affection for. He even said that one day, he longed to be the mayor of New York City. That's how much he loves that city. And so he's wishing Mamdani a lot of success. Brian.
Right. They start off on the right foot. Remember, they got along. Cuomo got along with the president too, sometimes in the first term, and they blew up famously with each other, and they rallied together at the end. Jackie, great job. Great tough questions. You had two people trying to parry them at the same time, but I understand exactly what you were going for. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Jackie, doing a great job. Does this green light other CEOs, Charles, to say, have your meeting with Mandani? The president met with him. I know you have your differences, Jamie Dimon, but go ahead. See if you can work with him. Brian Moynihan.
I mean, they have to. Jamie Dimon just built a $3 billion building and smack dab in the middle of Manhattan. I mean, they have to meet with them. It is interesting, though. Mamdani actually set himself up, though. He talked about 100,000 school children in New York City who are homeless. Well, why would you allow illegal immigration? Yeah. He set himself up. And as far as the socialist, right, he's a socialist Democrat, but in his victory speech, he mentioned Eugene Debs, who started out as a social Democrat and eventually became a socialist.
Right. Yeah, he had the sirens going off in his victory speech. Charles Payne, Jason Chaffetz, thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
So here's a live look at the White House, where President Trump is meeting with New York City's Democratic Socialist mayor-elect, Zohran Mamdani. They have taken some jabs at each other in the past, but the president tells Fox that he thinks that the meeting will be civil. So with that, we bring in Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman. He was the first sitting Democrat to meet with President Trump. He met with him at Mar-a-Lago and said that the president was kind and cordial when they got together. Senator Fetterman, always good to have you with us. Welcome back to the program. What are your thoughts as we wait for this meeting and perhaps a little bit of on-camera discussion from these two men?
Well, we actually have some common ground with me and the socialist guy. We both agree that it's reasonable to meet with the president if they invite to sit down and talk to them. And I think what's different is that I haven't seen a lot of blowback for Mandani to do this, but I got a lot. And I think it's perfectly reasonable to sit down and have this conversation. And that's what I've done back in January. And I do expect that it's going to be cordial. And I think overall it's going to be a regular conversation overall.
I wonder what you think is in it politically for each of these men. They're both from New York. They come from very different political philosophies, but they clearly want to meet each other. What do you think's in it for Mamdani, and what do you think is in it for President Trump?
I'm not sure exactly, but I do. I mean, it's the biggest city in our country, and I think it's entirely normal to have leaders meeting and talking. And I did the same thing in Mar-a-Lago. I mean, he invited me to join him, and I said, sure. I mean, as a senator that represents one of the biggest states in the country, it's a normal conversation. And then I don't know why there's part of my party say that you're not allowed to have that, talk to him or do these things. And that's crazy. And I don't seem that they're having the same kind of a blowback. I'm not sure why, but it's always reasonable to do these things.
One of the biggest groups that helped Mamdani get elected is the Democrat Socialists of America. And we're seeing them get traction in a number of races across the country. And put forward a lot of candidates across the country. And these are some of their demands for Mamdani. They say, he's our guy, and we're not going to let go of the things that he told us he would do. And these are the demands: divest from Israel, ban Israeli products in city-run grocery stores, end NYPD training with, quote, Israeli occupation forces, and arrest the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu if he comes to New York. So what do you make of those demands from the DSA on the future mayor of New York, Senator?
Well, I mean, it's absurd and arrogant, and it's just like tough guy. Well, we would arrest Netanyahu. Like, that you have no authority to do that, and the United States are not a part of the ICC. So it's just, again, that's empty kinds of threats. And now it's like, yes, parts of my party is becoming more and more anti-Israel. And the new candidates now make it more and more front and center in their campaign to be anti-Israel. Well, I mean, that just affirms me. That's a signal to just lean in harder and be very proud to stand with Israel, because that's our key ally. And I refuse to ever turn our back, regardless if there's part of my party that's been willing to do these things.
So, to talk about that contrast in your party, this is a post from the Pennsylvania Working Families Party. And what they're saying about you, Senator, they say, we are primarying John Fetterman. Last week, Fetterman once again sold out working-class Pennsylvanians. He was just the deciding vote for the Republican budget bill that will strip health care from over 400,000 Pennsylvanians. We deserve real working-class leadership in the U.S. Senate. What's your response to that?
I hope so, because I guarantee whoever they put up, they're going to just make me look, the reasonable guy that's going to work with both sides together and find a way for Pennsylvania. And now it's an absolute lie. Voting to keep our government open, that was a vote to make sure that 42 million Americans get their SNAP. And now we're going to pay all these people, like the military and the Capitol Police and all of those folks now too. So now if they want to primary me, so it's like, but my point, it's like I've been on the side of common sense, and I've always going to put our country for party. And I think most people now realize that shutting our government down was wrong.
It's interesting. There were some voters who were Trump voters who voted for Mamdani. And it seems that the working class vote is really looking for someone who stands by them. And in many ways, President Trump really has surprised, in terms of the outcome. He's garnered a lot of working class voters. But this was an interesting piece in a new column that compared your brand of politics, Senator Fetterman, to Reagan Democrats. But saying, now it's flipping the other way around. According to this writer in Real Clear Politics, this is an opinion piece. It says Fetterman is one of the few U.S. senators of either party who seems to follow his conscience instead of party bosses. It would sure be interesting to see him on a debate stage challenging Gavin Newsom, Gretchen Whitmer, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to stop telling Americans what they need and start listening to find out what they want. What do you think of that?
Well, I think Governor Whitmer. I think we agree on a lot of things. I mean, we all remember that the governor would visit and talk to the president, and he works together for their states. So the others that you reference, and now, so for me, it's like, whether Governor Whitmer and I have done is that we have won, and we've carried the kind of states that determine who's going to be the next president, and those are the kind of states that keep us honest and a reminder that there are both sides. And I think we probably agree with Governor Whitmer that we're not going to call them you're fascists, you're Nazis, you're terrible, and you're trying to destroy our nation for that. So it's like, it's all about these states, like whether it's Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania, not about like the deep, deep blue things, whether it's California or AOC's district, or if it's Mandami's now too. And those are the kinds of extreme things that was part of the reason why we lost in 2024.
Do you think that you could peel off votes if you were to run for the White House down the road? I know you told me, it's too soon to think about that. But do you think that you could peel off working class voters who have gone over to the Trump side, on the Republican side?
I think the argument that you and the kinds of values and the kinds of perspectives to carry a state like Pennsylvania, and I do think, very compatible for that. In increasingly polarizing times, I just want to be normal, and I just want to have common sense thing. And now, when I have to if I'm asked to violate my core and my party's, what I think my party's values, like shut our government down and plunge 42 million Americans into food insecurity, and now, Thanksgiving is coming. Can you imagine the kinds of mass chaos just trying to travel, after the shutdown? Yeah. And why would we want to do anything that would make flying less safe and more chaotic on that? And that's my values, and I think that should be the Democratic value. And now if that might cost me politically to follow the party during the shutdown, but I'm proud what I stand by that vote.
Well, Senator, before I let you go, we haven't seen you, I don't think, since you had a fall, and you're a little banged up, but we all understand and have been through similar things, I think. So are you doing okay? You doing well?
Yeah, we did a lot of tests, and all the doctors confirmed, that man has a really rough face. So it really didn't really happen.
You have a hard head. Thank you very much, Senator. Always good to see you, sir. Thanks for being here today. Good Day New York on Fox 5 and the host of Sanctuary Trap, The Sanctuary Trap on Fox Nation, and Dagan McDowell, host of The Bottom Line and The Big Money Show, both on Fox Business. Great to have both of you here, both residents of New York. And this is a big moment. I was saying, it wasn't that long ago that Mamdani was, doing marathon races in New York City with a Freeze the Rent T-shirt on, and now he is on a plane surrounded by reporters as he goes to the White House to sit down with the President of the United States.
Well, first of all, you've talked to him. I've talked to him on Good Day New York several times. Mr. Mamdani is very charming, and President Trump can be very charming. And both of them have been lobbying insults against one another for the past few months. But I think it's going to be a whole different scene when they sit down face to face without the press, at least for a few minutes. Now, I do feel like Zohran Mamdani is kind of softening his image a little bit. He started off with defund the police. He backtracked on that. Recently, he said that he wanted Jessica Tisch to stay on as the police commissioner. That is happening. They announced that. Jessica Tisch brought him to the NYPD memorial, where I feel like it was her idea. Like, you want me? Okay, then we're going to this memorial where you're going to basically give up a little bit and be there. I feel like Zohran Mamdani is also stepping back from some of the things he originally said about the police. Like, at first he said, I want these social workers to go in domestic abuse situations, not police officers. And now he's coming back and saying, okay, I think the police officers need to be part of the domestic abuse situations when they call 911. But he's still evolving. And I feel like he's going to evolve again when he sits down with President Trump today.
So that's the sort of safety and security side of it, very important to New York City. Dagan, the other side is the economy, this battle of how to improve people's lives. And Mamdani thinks that it's through socialist programs to make government more a part of your life. President Trump feels very differently than that.
New York City is a socialist economy already. The city has city-run and owned hospitals that 2/3 of the city's budget, it's about $116, $117 billion, 2/3 of it goes to education, that is the school system and the City University of New York, social services, and then pensions and fringe benefits. That alone is 2/3 of the entire city budget. And we all talk about, the millionaires are going to leave. How many millionaires have moved out of the state? And that would drive revenue out of the city, and that's very dangerous financially, fiscally. But the one thing that you have to start with is safety and security and crime. Because if crime spikes, your tourists start coming to New York City. And that therein begins the kind of waterfall effect of where the city loses money. But I wonder, in terms of how he's changed, Zohran Mamdani, here's a quote from 2 days ago. I'm going to make it faster and easier and cheaper for small businesses to get started and stay open. We're going to cut fines and fees by 50%. Regulations are important, but small businesses have to navigate more than 6,000 of them with far fewer resources than the big chains. You should not have to fill out 24 forms and go through 7 agencies to start a barbershop. And I was like,
Trump's going to agree with him on that. That's for sure.
So he should go in there if he really has his eyes on higher office, Mandani. He should go in there and actually ask President Trump questions. About you grew up in Queens, what would you do? What is the biggest problem? Because the crisis will come for Mandani in New York City. It will be financial. It'll probably be a Wall Street crisis where the revenue just goes poof overnight.
Yeah, well, the Democratic Socialists of America, their heads are going to explode when that happens. But how far does this young man want to go is the question, and how much of a politician is he? I think we're watching the education of Zohran Mamdani in real time here as you point to these evolutions of the way he's thinking. We'll see how he actually acts when he becomes mayor. Stand by, and thank you for now to both of you.
So, John, as we await today's showdown over socialism at the White House, here's a reminder of Mandani's recent anti-Trump rhetoric.
And it's where the mayor will use their power to reject Donald Trump's fascism. My administration would be Donald Trump's worst nightmare. If anyone can show a nation betrayed by Donald Trump how to defeat him, it is the city that gave rise to him. Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
My View host Lara Trump is with us now. Lara, great to see you. I'm sure you can offer a very unique preview of what we're about to see with this meeting at the White House. Welcome.
Well, thank you. Great to be with you, Sandra. It's funny because Donald Trump inspires everybody, doesn't he? He inspires his base to come out and vote. And clearly, Mamdani and a lot of Democrats use President Trump to inspire their base to come out and vote as well. But you've seen President Trump kind of allude in the past to the fact that he understands politics very well, and he understands the fact that in the heat of it, you know, you're in a competition, and they've utilized him as the bad guy on the Democrat side. And despite that, I actually think that this meeting will be rather cordial. Now, President Trump has not held back at all when it comes to his feelings on Zohran Mamdani. He calls him a communist. He's very concerned about the direction of New York City. And I think that, rightly so, a lot of us look at this, and this is our biggest city in the country, Sandra. This is Donald Trump's hometown. He wants to ensure the right things happen there and that it's not utterly destroyed, which unfortunately, I think a lot of us feel like maybe it's on that path. So I think it'll be very interesting to see these two men together. I do think it'll be cordial. I do think that if they allow cameras in, get ready, sit back and watch, ladies and gentlemen, get your popcorn ready. But Mamdani's coming there asking probably for a blessing from President Trump to receive a lot of that federal money we've heard the president talk about in the past. So he'll probably be on his best behavior, but I think we're all definitely paying attention.
I mean, to be fair, President Trump's given him some credit for running a successful campaign, right? I mean, he said it's not easy. He was able to do that. And President Trump, we know, cares deeply about New York City. Where do you imagine they could find some common ground, knowing how different their policies are?
Well, I mean, hopefully in their love of that city. I think that might be all, Sandra, I can think of, because it is so vastly different. We know that President Trump believes in capitalism. He believes in creating jobs. He believes in ensuring that, the future looks bright via people working hard for that future. Socialism is the opposite. We want to distribute everybody's money to people who didn't earn it. And it stifles things like innovation and creativity. It is really the opposite ideology. So I don't know how much they'll have to connect on, but perhaps their love of New York City, perhaps the idea that they both want to see a brighter future, albeit completely different ideologies in terms of how to achieve it. But again, I do think it'll be cordial. You've seen President Trump in the past sparring with people on stage in a lot of those debates. And now look at our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. They have a great relationship. And he's in the past acknowledged the fact that in the heat of the moment and in the heat of a competition like that, he understands why people have to kind of do the things that they do. And then you can kind of come back together. And I think for the benefit of New York City, hopefully these two men can come together. And maybe President Trump rubs off on him a little bit and shows him that perhaps he's got some good ideas himself.
It's going to be quite a photo op for sure. Just want to finish off with the words of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, because she is appearing to take a wait-and-see approach to the meeting. Listen.
mean, we'll see. Obviously, the mayor-elect is going to be is preparing for his inauguration. Of course, he's indicated that he's willing to sit down with anybody and everybody. So we'll see. You know, I think we're both in the same boat and seeing, you know, how the meeting goes.
Maybe a good example. I mean, maybe AOC should be sitting down with Moore on the other side of the aisle.
Yes, I agree with that. It kind of feels like she maybe didn't want him to take this meeting. Like she says, we don't know. We'll see. We'll see. You know, she went out and obviously campaigned very heavily for this. And this is who the Democrats want the entirety of their party to mimic. You've seen AOC, you've seen Zohran Mamdani. We see out, you know, on the West Coast in Seattle. They would like, and AOC would like, for this to be the future. So the fact that he's sitting down, Mamdani's sitting down with President Trump, maybe doesn't rub her the right way. But Sandra, I agree. We want more of differing opinions to come together. That's how America was founded. That's how we're supposed to be. And that's how you get the best ideas, is multiple minds coming together and coming up with the best possible solution. So hopefully we see that today from the White House.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of interest in watching for this. Hopefully those cameras do open up and head on into the room so we can all see in here. We'll see. Lara, thank you so much. Good to have you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.